And welcome in to the first edition of the Penn Podcast, the Out of Bounds Podcast, here with the Penn IUP Student Voice. I am your host, Josh Garney, joined alongside by staff writer Mike Gosnell and our special guests, Dimitri George and Dan Wallace. And fellas, we are talking about Crimson Hawks Hoop, the women 5-game losing streak. Goose, you are the play-by-play man for the women's team. Last night they went on the road to Edinburgh and lost again. Surprise. 66-59. Leslie Stapleton, 16 points. Talon Watson, 13 points off the bench. In your article yesterday, you included how Coach McConnell wanted to see Watson step up, and apparently she did with 13 points. The Crimson Hawks shot just 35% from the floor compared to Edinburgh's 48.1%. So as I mentioned, that's a 5-game losing streak for the Crimson Hawks. What is wrong with this team?
They're not shooting the ball well at all. Either they're not taking smart shot selections or the rim is just covered. And I think the latter is an impossible thing. They're not making smart shot selections. Edinburgh, a very good team, first in the division now since they upset Gannon, who's now 5th, I believe, in the nation. In talking to Tom McConnell yesterday, he wanted the identity of this team to be defense. You got to have a happy medium there. I mean, this system that he runs is fast-paced, and I know I was talking about it, you and I, Josh, were talking about it when they had the last game on that Saturday against Cal. It's a team of individuals right now. And some players, quite frankly, are not fit for that system. Ashley Stoner being one of them, who's more of a slow-tempo half-court, and she can be dominant. We saw glimpses of that last year. I'd say Leslie Stapleton, I don't think, is a real fit for that high-tempo system, although she's stepped up big time, and that's what Coach McConnell also told me, that with Lindsay Stamp now on a week-by-week injury basis, because they have no idea when she'll be back, but according to McConnell, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks, then they'll reevaluate from there. So everybody has to step up, and they gave Edinburgh a good game last night, but at the waning minutes, they let things get away. They couldn't close out.
Yeah, Goose, you mentioned for Edinburgh, Valerie Majewski, 24 points, leading scorer. You mentioned a team of individuals for the Crimson Hawks, and you talked about how McConnell wanted to have an identity as being a defensive team. But to me, he kind of has lost his way as a head coach. Coming in, you mentioned he wanted to have this up-tempo, fast-break offense, but now he wants to be a defensive team. To me, those two areas clash in a sense, where you want to be a fast-break team, but you also want to play tough physical defense. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And I can see where it doesn't make sense. I mean, in talking to him, he seems really confident they're going to break out of it. I had a feeling personally that they would last night, but it didn't happen. It seems as though that his players are even a little bit more confused of what he's trying to run. Now, I don't know whose fault that is. It's the coach for not clarifying, or the players just can't follow along. But I'll say this: if they lose Saturday against a subpar Slippery Rock team, something is going to be done. I'm not saying a firing. I'm not saying anything else, but something is going to be done. That's a 6-game losing streak right now. If that happens, that's unacceptable. And I have a feeling Mr. Condino, the athletic director, is keeping a keen eye on this.
Now, you mentioned the Slippery Rock game this Saturday. We will get to that here at the end. But this team has the same exact roster, minus Seraph Historic, that Jeff Dow had last year. And I believe they had 23 wins, went to the second or third round of the PSAC tournament. I think we're knocked out in the first or second round of the NCAA tournament. A successful program, over 100 wins, and now all of a sudden McConnell comes in. He starts out great. They're 8-1 at one point, a close loss to Seton Hill before break. Now they come back in a 5-game losing streak. I'm just kind of lost as to what's going on. And Dimitri, you and I switch on and off as the color analyst for Goose for 90.1 WIUP-FM. What do you see with this team? I mean, we've never seen a losing streak this long in this decade with the Crimson Hawks.
Yeah, excuse me. Actually, I was kind of surprised. The last time I saw them, I called a game with Goose, was the Pitt-Johnstown game, where they put up 96 points. Yeah. Stamp went off that night. What was she, 8 of 9?
She was perfect from beyond the arc. She made 7 of 7 at one point.
Yeah, she was on fire, and everything was rolling. They rattled off a couple straight after that. Lost to Seton Hill, as mentioned, but and then won a couple in a row, and then now they're on this losing streak. And to me, when I saw this team up in person, it reminded me of some of those West Coast NBA teams who like to get out and run, a little bit of a run and gun, kind of like that Mike D'Antoni, whose lack of, I've heard multiple people of high sources say that Mike D'Antoni has no idea about defense. He's gotten better lately, but again, his focus is offense, and I think that's what IUP wanted to get out and try to do early in the season, and all of a sudden things have changed. I don't know what the answers or what the reasons for it may be, but like you said, Ashley Stoner to me is a half court post inside the post presence down low. She doesn't really. I don't think she's really suited to get out and run as much as some others, but they got to get this thing turned around because they're 11-6 right now overall, and they're 2-5 in the conference, so they're struggling a little bit right now. They got to get this thing turned around, or like Goose said, some things are gonna roll.
That's interesting. McConnell is a very successful coach. His best years were at St. Francis University, coaching the men's team. They actually featured London Fletcher, middle linebacker for the Washington Redskins. Fun fact there. But Dan, we know you call the game for the men, but you have to listen to the women's game beforehand. And I say that have to because sometimes it can be very tough, especially last weekend was a snooze fest in the first half. But based off of what you're listening to, what do you think the problem is with this IUP team?
I mean, there's not really much more to put into what you guys said. It's a new system. It's a hard system to figure out. He's working with personnel that was brought in by Jeff Dow, not his own personnel. He didn't recruit these girls to come play here. At least most of them. The freshmen he may have had a hand in, such as Mackenzie Livingston, who he's huge on for the next upcoming years for IUP women's basketball. But sophomore and above, he had no hand in bringing these people in. So he's trying to run a system that doesn't have players that fit it. But IUP's, I don't want to say they're getting lucky. They're going to get lucky here this next stretch because they're in their next 5 games, next 4 games, they play all teams in the PSAC West who have below 500 records in the PSAC, and they're going to get lucky in the respect that we mentioned that this is a team of individuals. Well, they're going to play these 4 games without their best individual with Lindsey Stamp. So they're going to get lucky in the fact that they're playing teams that are subpar while she's out.
Yeah, Dan, you mentioned the 4 upcoming games. This Saturday, January 25th against Slippery Rock here at the KCAC. Then Wednesday, January 29th, they go on the road to Pitt Johnstown. That is a 5:30 tip. February 1st, that is a Saturday. It's home against Clarion. And then February 8th is against Seton Hall here at the KCAC. So 4 key games for this team. But we want to take a look now at Slippery Rock, who they are really bad this year, and that's being nice. They are 4-13 overall, 1-6 in conference, but they are on a 1-game winning streak. They are coming off of a 75-70 victory over Seton Hill. So this team is playing with some confidence right now. When they're losing, they're not getting blown out, so to speak, but they're failing in key areas of the game, whether it's free throws or the turnover differential. So this is a big game for IUP, especially at home. Goose, you and I will have the call Saturday at 5:30. What do you expect with IUP coming out in this game?
If I could clarify my comments from earlier, I'm not advocating McConnell getting fired or his assistants. I'm going at it from the
something has to happen.
If they lose this game, and now getting into the preview of that, Deja Chambers for Slippery Rock is going to play a huge portion of minutes for the Rock. It's going to be very interesting to see how IUP responds on home court with with Slippery Rock bringing 4 bus loads of their fans coming in, and it gives them all more incentive to come out with a victory at the Kowalczyk Center, which I think is it's a definite possibility now because you can't write any opponent off now, despite how terrible they've been, and that makes that loss to Seton Hill earlier in the year look really bad for the Crimson Hawks if a team like Slippery Rock, who's like we've said is subpar, can beat them. And you've said, Josh, that Slippery Rock doesn't lose by much when they do lose. So I think it's going to be another contest for IUP, which is going to have 3 factors. Can we shoot the ball well? Can we play good man-to-man defense, stop the penetration, which has not happened? And can we take care of the basketball? All of those 3 factors have been exclusive to why they've lost. They can't take care of the ball that well. We've seen that against Cal. Cal used a lot of turnovers to make their points. And they don't shoot the ball very well. Lindsay Stamp, when she is healthy, has been known to take some questionable shots. Everybody's been known to take questionable shots from that team. And really, going back to what you said, Dan, this is a big recruiting year for Tom McConnell, because they're going to be losing a lot of players over the next 2 years. This offseason, and really this season now, is a big recruiting year for Tom McConnell and this program. And if he wants to get it in the right direction, he needs to hit on all of his recruits he's bringing in.
Goose, you mentioned Deasia Chambers. She's a phenomenal talent. She's averaging 17.5 points per game. Slippery Rock has 5 players, all starters in double figures. You want to talk about balance? You would look at the statistics here for their starters and think, oh, this has to be a pretty good team. But for some reason, they can't get it done in the crunch time. But Deasia Chambers, Alexis Brown, Jasmine Frost, Aiden Geis, and Erica Aiello, all averaging in double figures. It's going to be very tough for IUP.
Well, the thing is, when you look at it, when you look at the number of points they're putting up, yeah, they have good offensive talent, and they can put up a lot of points, 70 points a game. The problem that they're having for Slippery Rock is the fact that they're bad on defense. They're giving up 76 points a game. That's a lot for women's basketball. When you see that when a lot of the teams get out and try to run, that's the way women's basketball is. 76 is still a lot of points, and that's when you don't play defense well. I mean, you're not going to win a lot of games. Granted, IUP, you mentioned, they lose their games mostly because of the fact they can't take care of the basketball. They're averaging like 15 turnovers a game or something like that, some outrageous number. But Slippery Rock's going to come in here and they can capitalize on IUP's turnovers. So IUP definitely has to take care of the basketball, because if they don't, Slippery Rock's going to get out and run, and they're going to score a lot of points. So if IUP can't take care of the ball and score the points themselves, they could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm looking at these stats right now. Slippery Rock also has trouble taking care of the ball. They're averaging almost 20 turnovers per game, which is unacceptable. But looking towards this game, if IUP turns the ball over, as we've mentioned, and Slippery Rock gets out, starts to run and puts up some points, IUP could be in trouble with Stamp. She's not playing, I'm assuming.
No, she'll be out.
She'll be out?
She'll be out quite some time.
Yeah. So they're going to have to find offense via Marita Matthew has to step up at the point guard position. She's got to be able to facilitate the offense. And to me, I don't think they want to get into a run and gun shootout with Slippery Rock this week. I think they're going to have to try to execute a half court offense, which we know is not their strength. But again, it's going to be whoever takes better care of the basketball. I think will win this game.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. Is that they're going to have to play the system that they're not going to they haven't been practicing this whole year. Maybe that's a good thing, because a lot of these players are coming from a Jeff Dow system, which was a lot like that. Stamp, her injury looked really bad against Cal. From what I hear, it's not as bad as it looked. It's a week-by-week thing. But I think not just Marita Matthew, I think Leslie Stapleton has to step up, which she's done a very good job. Talon Watson, Zane Brooks, Marina Wareham, the entire bench, really.
Right.
You have to get contributions from everybody, especially when you're on a 5-game slide.
And here's the thing, without Stamp, especially in this game against Slippery Rock team that scores a pretty good amount of points, Stamps was averaging like 20 points a game.
Yeah.
Who comes out and steps up and scores and goes on a run like that on this team?
Well, the hope for the Crimson Hawks, and especially Coach McConnell, as we mentioned early on, was Talon Watson, who is a Division I transfer from UMass, who has some talent, but just watching her over the past few years, her jump shot seems off. Her decision making at the point, she seems reluctant to take some shots. She's hesitant at times. So, and I think that comes with her getting moved to the bench. If you recall, a few years ago, she was a starter at the point guard position before Marita Matthew really just blossomed into the player she is now. So the hope is for Watson to step up, but I want to see a player like Jessica Wallace get some more playing time. She's an outside threat. Goose, you might like this. She's Canadian. So when she got in last year in a game I called against, I believe
It was Fairmont State.
Yeah.
She can shoot the ball clear from Vancouver, British Columbia, and it will go in.
Yeah,
she's very deadly from beyond the arc.
But the problem is she's not very quick. She's not very strong. So
Kyle Korver.
Yes. If there was a male version of Jessica Wallace, it would be Kyle Korver. But Kyle Korver gets consistent playing time because he's a known threat. But with Stamp going down, Dan, you have to get the most out of your bench. You have to exhaust every player on your bench to try and make up for that 20 points per game, and I don't think McConnell does a good enough job of doing that. But real quick, before we move on to the men, IUP head-to-head against the Slippery Rock women's team, 41-36, going for win 42 Saturday night at 5:30. You can catch it on 90.1 WIP-FM. Myself, Mike Busnell, with the call. But guys, now we move on to a better story on the campus of IUP. The men's basketball team ranked 15th in the country. They were as high as number 5 until back-to-back losses to, I believe it was Gannon, and then Saturday night against Cal.
Correct.
Dan and I had the call on that as well. It seems I have the call on everything recently, which is okay in a sense, I guess. But last night, the 15th ranked Crimson Hawks traveled to Edinburgh as well, but they came out with a victory, 69-66. Matisse Keita, probably his best game of the year, 28 points, 8 rebounds, and it was barely enough. But Devontae Chance, Dan, I talked to you about this right before we came on. Devontae Chance is my dark horse PSAC player of the year. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. He does it all, offensively, defensively. I think on Saturday I compared him to a poor man's Gary Payton with the way he plays defense. I mean, he's a terror defensively. But I mentioned 14 points, 6 boards, 2 assists. 6 boards as a 5'10" point guard. Awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean the thing is with him, he's not going to be your leading scorer. He's never going to be your leading scorer. He's not built for that. Me and you have talked about it multiple times about the fact of watching him grow from his freshman year to where he's at now as a junior. How much his outside game has leaps and bounds improved. I mean, he couldn't hit anything coming in here as a freshman. His shot was flat. It would just hit the back of the rim and bounce way out the half court. Nobody even having a chance to get an offensive rebound on it. But now he's completely improved his touch. He's averaging in double figures now, I think, or at least close to 10 points a game. He's a big-time facilitator on this team, which is a huge gain for this team considering what they lost in terms of facilitating last year with losing Scooter Rankin and Anthony Wells. Somebody had to step up and take that job. He's a floor general, and you said it, he is, to me, he's the best defensive player in the PSAC.
No question.
Because you can't compare it to a guy like we saw with Alonzo Murphy for California, who's a defensive presence under the basket. But
Chance is the guy at the perimeter that's just going to shut the offense down right there.
And he's one of the quickest players in the PSAC. I mean, you look at him, you see a guy out around the perimeter dribbling the ball, next thing he knows, it's in the other hoop. Yeah. I mean, he leads the team in steals. I think he leads the PSAC in steals, for that matter. But the big story now is the fact that finally Matisse Keita has turned it around. He went on a skid while we were out at break where he scored 6, 7, 7, and 6 in a game. And you can't expect that from a guy who's a transfer from a big-time Division I basketball program in Gonzaga. Me and you talked about it, bringing in the transfer from Cheney from last year, Brandon Norfleet, I think stunted his progress a little bit because he had to. Him and Norfleet are close to the same type of players, so they had to share a little bit of playing time.
Yeah.
But finally, he's come back and said, "You know what? I'm not taking any of this. This is my team, and I'm going to play it the way I want to."
Yeah, I was just going to say about Devontae, if I may ask a question. How do you guys feel that he's replaced Anthony Wells?
I think he's replaced him and then some. I mean, Anthony Wells was a great leader. He was a great offensive player, but defensively. He lacked a bit defensively, in my opinion. But you move Chance into the starting lineup. He's just as good a shooter now as Anthony Wells was. He's a better passer. If you can watch the game Saturday, just watch some of the passes he makes. I mean, Saturday, he threw a bounce pass from half court into the paint, and it was on the money. And I believe it was...
it was Keita going to the basket.
It was Keita going to the basket. It was right there. Didn't break stride. I mean, one of the best bounce passes I've seen. It was at least a 50-foot bounce pass. But I think he's definitely stepped up as a leader of this team. He's the heart and soul I mean, the emotion he displays on the court is incredible, and these guys buy into it, and they follow him. He's the type of player I would want to take into a dark alley.
Well, here's the thing about the difference between this year with Wells, or last year with Wells, and this year with Chance. Last year's team, they went off of their pure skill alone. They had a ridiculous amount of skill players. When you look at it, Anthony Wells was one of the most skilled basketball players you'll see in Division II basketball. Rankin's now playing in Australia. He can shoot the lights out of any gymnasium he wants. And then you had Josh Wiggin down low, who was just an absolute brute. All right, well, this year it's a completely different team. This team's not as skilled in terms of basketball, but this team is a much more athletic team than they were last year. You have a lot more guys who can just get out and run the floor, and that's when you need a guy like Devontae to be that kind of facilitator. Like you said, 50-foot bounce pass? When are you going to see that? That's crazy.
This team, and I know this could be a bold statement, this team has the ability to reach the levels that 2009, 2010 team reached in going to the Elite Eight. Guys like Kevin Stewart, Darrell Webb. I can't recall the kid that transferred from, I believe, Temple.
Well, they also had Ashton Smith.
Ashton Smith was I mean, these guys regularly made SportsCenter's top 10 plays. I mean, phenomenal talent. They got out and ran. They always had that one defensive player that scared the crap out of you. I mean,
Smith led the PSAC in steals for like 3 straight years or something.
Yeah, and you can look at these two teams and see identical pieces. To me, you don't have the Darrell Webb. Okay, that Darrell Webb is a player in his own. But you have Kevin Stewart, who I kind of get a little Brandon Norfleet out of him, although I haven't seen a lot out of Brandon Norfleet. You have Matisse, who kind of doesn't compare to anyone from that Elite Eight team. And just bench guys, glue guys. Jesse Bosnick is a phenomenal bench guy. I mean, he comes in. This is a guy that played minor league baseball last year, okay, for the LA Dodgers. Had 1 month to get into basketball shape. So that means running, shooting, like all that. 1 month. And now he's a key sixth man off the bench. And he's just a grit guy. I mean, that guy was one of the most talented players in the state when he was coming out of high school. District 6 Player of the Year.
And him and Devontae are ridiculous defensive tandem.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
he plays defense the same way as Devontae does. He's going to be the type of guy that gets in your face and just bothers the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Because Devontae is like a fly, all right? He does not go away. He stands in your face. I called a game in which he forced the offense into 3 5-second closely guarded calls in the same game.
Yeah.
You never see that.
And he almost did it 6 times against Cal. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a few times where he had Jake Jackiebeck stop his dribble, outside the perimeter and have nothing to do with it, and he just threw it up and got lucky. But Devontae Chance is the key cog with this team. Everyone wants to talk Matisse. This team begins and ends with Devontae Chance's attitude.
I think another guy you're forgetting from that team is Julian Sanders.
Yeah.
Another key
Yeah.
cog to that team. I don't know who he compares to on
That's
this
tough.
current team.
That's tough. Maybe Matisse in a sense.
They shoot the ball the same way.
Yeah.
But listen, I have to listen to you call it and Malusi Kitchen on most nights.
That's got to be painful for you.
Nah, I mean, it's a job,
You
But,
don't get paid for it, though.
No. Volunteering.
Community
Nice guy.
service. There
Volunteering
you
my
go.
time.
Nice.
But yeah, I think I agree with what everybody says. Devontae Chance is a very good basketball player, very good shutdown defender, which is very valuable for a point guard. I mean, there's not a whole lot of point guards out there right now that can play on both sides of the both sides of the court.
I'll make this statement about Devontae Chance. He is one of the most annoying players you'll ever see in college basketball.
And that's a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other players I think can step up here in the next coming weeks is Jeremy Jeffers, another guy that Joe Lombardi brought in from a big-time program like Drake. And he can really do it all, too. He can shoot the three. He's a good presence in the paint, too, has a good size. From seeing bits and pieces of him playing when I've actually called men's games, he looks like a very good he complements the team very well. You can stick him in any position, like maybe the 3-4 or maybe even the 5 possibly, but
The only thing you have to worry about Jeremy Jeffers with is, can his knees hold up?
Mm-hmm.
You see him playing with 2 knee braces. That was what held him back at Drake. I mean, this guy was a ESPN top 300 recruit in the country when he was coming out. And he was supposed to be a guy, like I'm going to compare to the NBA, a Tayshaun Prince. Okay, a defensive threat, but also could knock down the outside shot. And his knees have seemingly sapped his quickness and maybe some of his athleticism, but his basketball IQ has taken over, and he's really carved out a nice role with this Crimson Hawks team. But the big story for this week, and probably will be for the next week, is this Slippery Rock game. Slippery Rock bringing, four fan buses in, as you mentioned, Goose. This is a rivalry. If you guys remember, last year, the Crimson Hawks beat Slippery Rock here at the KCAC for the PSAC championship. They beat them twice. Once in the regular season, and then once in the PSAC tournament. So there's a lot of bad blood here. But most of the players that had that rivalry, in a sense, guys like Gerald Brooks,
Devin
Taylor, yeah, thank you.
Scooter
Rankin, Josh Wiegand, Kevin Edwards, all those guys, Danny Aiebo have moved on. And then it steps new players. But we look at Slippery Rock. Maurice Lewis-Briggs is their leading scorer, 15.9 points per game. To me, that's not a name I'm familiar with. Dan?
No, it's not. It's he's not a guy that, I'm not sure if he's a transfer or if he just rode the pine last year, because he did not get much playing time. The name that got a lot of playing time on that roster right now is Tabari Perry, who's got 11.5 a game himself. He was the big threat, the pairing that they had together down on the block with him and Devin Taylor, both guys who could play down on the low block but could also step out and knock down the jump shot when needed to. So they were a big time threat. And the other one that was from last year, who's a lot like Devontae, is Saquon Davis. And you see a lot of these guys in the PSAC, these guys who are smaller. They couldn't get into Division I schools to play because they're smaller. Their height kept them out, 5'10", 5'11", something like that. So we're going to have another huge battle at the point guard position where these two are just going to go at it. And they're two defensive thugs. So they're going to be in each other's faces the entire night.
It's going to be about who makes the most plays.
Yeah,
and who doesn't turn over the ball.
Basketball is a game of runs. And it's going to come down to who can make the longest run. And to me, looking at these two teams, on paper, mind you, I haven't seen Slippery Rock play a single minute yet this year, okay? On paper, I have IUP slightly ahead. Because you have guys like Matisse Keita, Devontae Chance.
Marcel. You
have Marcel Suburbiel, who we haven't even touched on yet, who might be one of the best stretch fours in the country in Division II.
Tell you what, he has the prettiest hook shot in the country.
Well, that's yeah. Yeah, and just, trying to compare with Slippery Rock, I just don't see it. Saquon Davis was supposed to be the number 2 option coming into this year. I'm assuming Maurice Lewis-Briggs was a transfer. So last year when you looked at the roster, you saw Saquon Davis and Tabari Perry were going to be the 2 big guys that come back. Now all of a sudden, Saquon Davis is only averaging 5.2 a game and seems to be completely irrelevant, although he's grabbing 2.5 rebounds a game and dishing out a ton of assists. But offensively, he's just irrelevant, and it's kind of a surprise. But a key thing to keep in mind, Slippery Rock has not beaten IUP here at IUP since the 91-92 season, the year that most of us were born. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to see that this weekend.
No, I don't know.
I like being a part of history.
I was not alive for that.
Okay, well, I like seeing history, but not in this sense. There's some school spirit in this.
Yeah. To me, I think this game is going to come down to somebody that we're probably not even talking about, and I don't know who it is. I'm just saying I think it's going to be an X factor, a guy that comes off the bench, hits down a key three, or hits some clutch foul shots. Someone's going to make an impact in this game that we're not talking about, that we are overlooking, because with the rivalries, you can throw numbers out the window, you can throw stats out the window. It's all about who's more physical, who's like Goose said, who's gonna make one of the most plays. And like I said, I'm gonna be a little biased here. I think IUP at home has the edge.
That situation is really similar to the women's game that we called with Cal. We touched on Antonenko, we touched on Kokoli and Mahardy. We did not touch on Mickey Glenn, and she ended up having one of the best games that we've seen.
Yeah.
Maurice Lewis-Briggs for Slippery Rock is a transfer from that Moorhead State team that had Kenneth Fareed that made a run in the NCAA tournament a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's where that talent's coming from.
Oh, look at you, Dan Wallace. How about that? Doing work. But so I think we have the majority of us, well, every one of us, picking IUP in this game.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to a segment where we do a little pick 'em. regarding Division I college basketball. We'll preview the game and we'll pick them. Saturday is a huge game in college basketball. There are huge games, in college basketball on Saturday. The first one, though, that I want to touch on is the Syracuse-Miami game, an ACC battle. Now, Miami, not very good, but the last time these two teams played, Syracuse squeaked out a 49-44 win. These two teams are similar in terms of their defensive mindset. They both play zone, and they both have key, lanky players at the top of their zone. You have Ryan Brown from Miami, who, if you forgot, lit up North Carolina on national television a few weeks ago, and took a bow to the face and just kept going. This guy is probably one of the better players in the ACC, but is overlooked because he plays on a lesser-known Miami squad. Obviously, last year they made a good run in the NCAA tournament, but lost everyone to graduation or the NBA draft, namely Shane Larkin, who is now back up for the Dallas Mavericks, but will eventually start. But in this game, these are two great coaches. Jim Larinaga from Miami going up against Jim Boeheim for Syracuse. Two guys that are really good with X's and O's and pulling the right moves at the right time. I have Syracuse in this game. That's not going out on a limb. They are the number 2 team in the country for a reason. Tyler Ennis is probably the most underrated freshman in the country, and I think he could potentially be a top 5 pick in the lottery if he were to come out next year. This guy has incredible basketball IQ. If anyone doubted that, put on the final 3 minutes of the Pitt game and then get back to me. This guy took over, and he's a freshman. And he's Canadian. There's a lot of good Canadian basketball players on this podcast, apparently. But, yeah, I have Syracuse, so we'll just go around the room. Dan, I think I know where you're going.
Listen, this Miami team, they got taken to the woodshed by a subpar in comparison to what it has been in the past Duke team so far this year. Duke's going to go on a run now because they're getting into ACC play. They play difficult competition in out-of-conference, which Krzyzewski's known to do. Go out-of-conference, play tough tasks, and then you're okay when you come to conference play. This ACC conference is subpar in general to what we're used to.
Yeah.
We're used to being 7-8 ranked teams out of the ACC. There's maybe 3, if I can think about the top of my head. Syracuse, Duke, Pitt. That might be the only 3 ranked teams in the ACC right now.
Yeah, that would be it.
They got beaten last night by Duke by 20, and this, to me, this Syracuse team is way ahead of where Duke is right now in terms of a maturity as a team. So to me, it's not even much of a contest.
Yeah, I don't see any. Can't put any scenario in my head where I have Miami winning. However, it would be horrific if I did not give a shout out to Davon Reed, who is a freshman at Miami from my hometown, Ewing, New Jersey. He's averaging almost 7 points a game, playing about 25 minutes a game too.
Wait, that's your shout out? You don't have a special message to him? Come on, man.
Hey, he's representing my hometown. I unfortunately did not go to our high school. And I don't
Did he
blame
go to
him.
a rival high school at all? Or?
Not really. But just gave him a better opportunity to expose himself and get himself out there. But again, unfortunately for Davon Reed and the Hurricanes, I just don't see them matching up well with Syracuse at all. I have Syracuse in this one big.
As do I. I really don't see a reason to pick Miami at all. I really don't.
Fair, completely fair. Ryan Brown, I think, is going to have a really good game. The way you beat Syracuse is to be able to shoot it from outside, and Ryan Brown can do that. But again, no one has beaten Syracuse this season.
The only teams that even have a chance of beating Syracuse is knocking it down from the outside, because you got to draw them out of that zone. Because they're in a zone that they sit there pretty much and say, "Come on, we're gonna challenge you with a 3. Once you start making that 3, maybe we'll come out and play a little man-to-man. But until you show us that you can make the outside shot, we're just going to sit back and take away every single board that you can get."
Yeah, and I don't see Syracuse losing this game. But the next game I want to take a look at is the West Virginia-Oklahoma State game. This is a rematch of about, 2 weeks ago, Dan? You and I attended?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Oklahoma State, number 11 in the country, in my opinion, has the best player in the country in Marcus Smart. LeBron Nash has been tearing it up. Markel Brown has been average since their center Michael Cobbins went down, and Phil Forte off the bench, or Pat Forte, excuse me, off the bench is just
It's Phil.
Phil. Yeah,
Yeah, first time.
P, white boy, he can shoot. So, I mean, this Oklahoma State team is pretty good. Obviously, they got beaten by Kansas, but I think everyone's going to get beaten by Kansas from here on out because they are figuring it out. They have the best player, one of the best players in the country, and no, it's not Andrew Wiggins.
They have a bunch of the best players in the country, actually.
Joel Embiid, who I think will be the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Don't forget about Wayne Selden too, though. Tarek Black, Perry Ellis. They have the best starting 5 in the country.
I wasn't forgetting them, but I was saying they have, in my opinion, one of the best.
I have to admit, I was one to at the beginning of the year. I was not impressed.
You jumped off. No, this team's not good.
I was never on their bandwagon. I was on Andrew Wiggins' bandwagon.
Me too.
But
Still am.
They're figuring it out. Obviously, with all that talent, they're going to have to figure out how to play our team, play as a team. I don't think they're on the level of Kentucky's starting 5 from a couple of years ago with Anthony Davis. However, but they are pretty formidable. They are turning around. And hopefully for the Duke Blow Devils, I'm going to bring them in for a second. Hopefully they get it turned around as they have struggled mightily early on in the season, as Dan was talking about the hard out of conference games. But again,
that's Coach K.
Absolutely, and those games really, win or loss, were bigger than that. It's about getting his team prepared for the long run to get in the tournament. Playing these good teams, the upper echelon teams in the country, that they're well prepared come tournament time.
Okay, we went on Duke there.
I did go on Duke for a minute, but again, Oklahoma State to me with Marcus Smart, I don't think he's the best player in the country. Top 5, I would say.
Well, he's one of.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
He'll be a finalist for the Wooden Award, I believe. But West Virginia, I think, is going to get better next year. They'll be even better than they are this year.
They're a very young team. Very young.
That only bodes well for them. I mean, they get the experience of playing top teams like Oklahoma State. And the Big 12 really is a really good conference this year, better than it has been in recent memory.
I think it could be put up there as the best in comparison to maybe the Pac-12 or the Big 10. The ACC was supposed to be the monster conference, and with UNC not being a very good team,
Pitt's very overrated.
Pitt is very overrated. We'll get to that in a bit. Duke, just
mediocre.
They're rolling through the waves here. I mean, they're high at one point. They're just at the lowest of lows at the next. But real quick, to look at Oklahoma State's schedule, they only have 3 losses, and they're all losses to ranked teams. Back on December 1st, they lost to Memphis 73-68. But a few weeks before that, they blew out Memphis 101-80. So you can take that as you want. January 4th, they lost on the road to Kansas State, who is the number 25 ranked team in the country, I believe. They lost that game 74-71. And then just the other day, they lost on the road against Kansas 80-78. So these are good losses to have. They have a tough stretch coming up here after West Virginia. They travel on the road to Stillwater. No.
They're from Stillwater.
Yeah, so they're going to Oklahoma, I was thinking.
Norman.
Norman. So they're taking on number 25 Oklahoma. Then they host number 24 Baylor and number 16 Iowa State. So that's a tough 3-game stretch. Well, tough 4-game stretch because I think West Virginia's pretty good. But I'm going to pick the Cowboys in this game. They had some mismatches that they, to me, didn't take advantage of in the last game against West Virginia. They barely beat them 73-72 back on January 11th. But I think if they go to LeBron Nash more often and let him work, this game won't be as close as it was last time.
Well, yeah, because most of WVU's skill is out on the perimeter. When you look at it, I mean, they have a kid in Jawan Staten who could and turn out to be one of the best point guards in the country, not this year, but in the upcoming years here. They have also Aaron Harris, who, when we went, didn't show us much. He has a tendency to try to take over games and lets it down a little bit. That was really the first one, though, against Oklahoma State where he didn't show up. He took a lot of bad shots in that game, and it hurt the Mountaineers. And then they also have Terry Henderson, who has the potential to turn into one of the best outside threats in the country as well. He hit 6 threes when we went to see him play Oklahoma State. He has the chance to just shoot the lights out of the gym. But being that the fact that this game's in Stillwater, it takes a little bit of a different sense. I mean, WVU was riding one of the most raucous crowds I've seen in the Coliseum in a long time in that game. I'm not going to compare it to the level of craziness that you would see in a Pitt WVU game, because that level that's on a completely different planet. But in terms of Big 12 play, it's one of the craziest crowds I've ever seen down there in the Coliseum. That place just holds noise. They're not going to have that crowd behind them. I still say it's not a runaway for Oklahoma State, but I'm probably going to say about 10-point win for the Cowboys.
So you're taking the Cowboys. Dimitri, who you got?
I got the Cowboys at home.
Goose?
Cowboys at home.
All right, I have the Cowboys as well. Watch out for Kamari Murphy on Saturday. The next game I want to take a look at is, in my opinion, the biggest game on Saturday. Number 21, Michigan, goes to, I believe, number 11. No, number 3, Michigan State. Wow.
Number 11.
I don't know why I was thinking 11.
Because Oklahoma State's 11.
Right. So, Michigan State. That's going to be an amazing game.
Always is.
But there's some bad news for the Spartans. Brandon Dawson out 4 to 5 weeks with a broken hand, just as they're getting Adrian Payne back from a foot injury. So you win some, you lose some if you're a Sparty fan. But getting Payne back will be big for the Spartans. And for the Wolverines, Nick Stauskas. I mean, this guy's just a beast. 19 points per game in conference. They called him the White Wolf from the North. I don't understand why. I know he's from Canada. Again, from Canada.
It's a Game of Thrones reference, I think.
There we go. Game of Thrones reference. So, Nick Stauskas, I mean, he's playing some of the best basketball out of anybody in the country. Should be a lock for Big Ten Player of the Year, just how he's carrying this team with Mitch McGary out. Glenn Robinson III is playing well, but Stauskas is seemingly the primary ball handler, it seems, when they're in a half-court set. But this is to me, this is a title fight. Whoever wins this game is going to go on to win the Big Ten.
Going back, what have I told all you guys? Everything great comes from Canada. There's
Oh,
countless NBA players and
boy.
good college basketball players are coming from the Great White North, Canada. But talk about a team that has clawed their way back. Michigan started off, if I recall, they
Lost
started
to UNC Charlotte.
They were very mediocre to begin with, and they started clawing their way back. They're now a ranked team. From the little I've seen of Michigan State, I watched the entire when they faced Texas, and they beat Texas. They have the opportunity. I really like this Michigan State team. They showed their dominance against Texas, even though Texas kept themselves in the game, but they knew how to turn it up a notch, go to a whole new level. It's going to be a great matchup between these two teams. I think I might be able to watch it. We have the game. All depends what time it is.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. There you go. But it's a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, to me, when I just look at Michigan State, me and my fellow colleague Kyle Condor, who hopefully will be
he'll be a guest here pretty soon. New to campus, so he's got to earn his stripes.
Absolutely, he's still. I tell him all the time he's a rookie, but me and him have talked about Michigan State. He is very high on them. He thinks that they're going to go all the way and win the national championship.
I would be right there with him.
I'm not disagreeing. I think it's. I know we're getting closer to March Madness, but to me, Michigan State has got all the pieces to the puzzle if they want to make a run. But Michigan State against Michigan at home, I think Michigan State takes care of business. Keith Appling is all you can. He's all you want him to be for them, and I think Adrian Payne coming back is huge. I don't know how much he's going to play with coming back from that injury.
I believe he's going to play as much as he
full
normally
go.
would. Yeah, I think he's a full go.
So that's a big boost for them. And like you mentioned, Brandon Dawson going down. But to me, Michigan State at home against Michigan, I think it's too much for the Wolverines.
Here's the thing now. Michigan has no Mitch McGary.
Right.
Michigan State has the guards to run with Michigan. They have the guards in Gary Harris and Keith Appling to match up with Stauskas and I can't remember the other kid's name, the other shooter for Michigan.
Ulbrich.
Yes, Ulbrich. And then you can match up Payne with Glenn Robinson if you want. Payne's going to dominate him, in my opinion. But no McGarry down the block to defend Payne.
Yeah.
That's painful for the Wolverines, even without Brandon Dawson. Because Brandon Dawson, for Michigan State, you had to have at least one or the other.
Yeah.
And that's where this game's going to be won for Michigan State, is down on the block. Because when you look at point guards, you give it an even draw almost when you look at the guards. But Michigan, to me, right now, without McGarry, does not have the personnel to handle Michigan State on the block.
And I would agree with you. But at the same time, I watched the Penn State game when Michigan hosted Penn State at the Chrysler Center. They did everything they wanted down low. Now, I know Penn State doesn't have anyone compared to Michigan State's players down low. But Jordan Morgan and I believe John Horford have really just stepped up in McGarry's absence and have provided offense and defense down low. Now, another guy is Zach Irvin, who was, I believe, number 3 ranked recruit in the country coming in and was expected to be one of those fantastic freshmen, as they call him. He's had to earn his time under John Beilein, and he's stepped up in the past few games. I believe he went for 20 against Iowa. That's something I'm going to have to check on, but he's really turning it around. But Glenn Robinson and Nick Stauskas, Derek Walton Jr., point guard, he's not turning it over very often. It's going to be a closer game than people expect.
Here's my thing, though. Those guys may have stepped up on the down low, like especially Horford, but they still haven't dealt, when you look at the teams that they play,
Fair.
with an inside presence
Fair.
such as Adrian Payne. The guy is a senior who's been around for, seems like, more than forever. I remember his face, I swear, 7 years ago, or whatever it was, when they played the national title against UNC.
He was a freshman.
Yeah, he would have had to have been.
He's also dealt with injuries, so he's been
Yeah,
redshirted.
they haven't faced a threat on the block like him yet. He gets his way in the paint. Period.
So, I'm taking Michigan State. Dan, I believe you're taking Michigan State.
They were my national title pick at the beginning of the year, and I'm sticking by it.
Although I love the Wolverines. That's another topic. Go ahead. Dimitri, who do you have?
I have Michigan State.
Goose?
Michigan State.
Oh, wow. Clean sweep. I think we have a clean sweep on every game
Yeah.
so far.
Well, this game's at Michigan State, too, is it
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Old Izzo.
Another game that we have to touch on really quickly just because it's a local team. The Pitt Panthers traveled to Maryland, to College Park, I believe, to take on the Maryland Terrapins, who are just terrible this year. Last time out, Pitt beat Maryland at the Pete 79-59. Personally, I think Pitt is the most overrated team in the country. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that. But Dan, you're getting awfully close. I feel like you have something to say.
This is another prototypical Jamie Dixon year.
Oh, they're going to be great in the regular season and flop in the second round of the NCAA tournament.
Not even the second round. They're going to get They're going to get a high ranking. They're going to get like a 4 or a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament off a name alone and because of their record, because they don't play anybody. And then the first competition they face, they're going to get blown out of the gym.
I hope so.
You know what's going to happen? The same thing that happened last year to Oklahoma State. They're going to get a team in the tournament.
on.
They're going to get a team in the tournament who Pitt's going to be a 5 seed. They're going to get a team in the tournament who's a 12 seed who's getting no respect like Oregon did last year. Going to come out with all the fire in the world and just run them to death.
I hope they play Oregon in the first round and it happens again.
Oh, they'll get destroyed. They'll get destroyed.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Why is Jamie Dixon? Dixon?
Jamie Dixon?
Yeah. Why is he still coaching? Why?
Because in the regular season, he gets the most important thing in college basketball, and that's a W. Plain and simple. He averages, I think, 25 wins a year.
But isn't a W more important than March Madness?
Yeah.
I would have fired him years ago.
Well, you also see it's a double-edged sword. You want to go for a national championship every year, but you also want to have stability. And what Jamie Dixon provides is stability. You don't want to get rid of a guy who's getting you 25 wins a season, filling up the Pete every single game. You don't want to axe him and bring in a new guy and just drop off the face of the earth, which I wish Pitt would do.
Oh
but
my goodness.
Look, they're terrible. They lost to Cincinnati, who, and probably one of the most boring basketball games I've ever watched in my life.
And Cincinnati's mediocre.
And
at best.
Cincinnati is mediocre. Every Pitt fan I hear on this campus,
There's
from
a lot of
back
them, too.
home, on Twitter, on the radio calling in, like, they are so hyped about this Syracuse game that they only lost by 5. Who cares?
Still lost.
You still lost to the number 2 team in the country. I don't understand it. I hate Pitt. I'm making that clear right now. I think they're so overrated. Lamar Patterson, great player. The rest of the team sucks. I hope Pitt loses, but I'm picking Pitt in this game because Maryland's terrible.
I was watching ESPN last night, and Dick Vitale annoys me to begin
Oh,
with.
well, come on. It's Dickie V.
Okay, listen, but he was on there raving about Robinson,
Ah.
and I had to turn it off. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm saying, I'm thinking about the fact that he put him up in against competition well, he saw Syracuse, they lost. Well, I don't know what Robinson did against Syracuse. It probably wasn't much. Put him up against Duke, he's not going to do anything.
My whole thing with Pitt point guards, they're always overrated. You look at Carl Krauser, Levance Fields, Brandon Knight. They all flopped. Okay? They all flopped at the next level. So, yeah, they're going to be great in college. I think that's more to do with what guys like Ben Howland and Jamie Dixon run in their offensive set. But James Robinson, people want to talk about him being maybe ACC Player of the Year. Come on. Because of an assist-to-turnover ratio, give me a break.
Well, here's the thing. He's only averaging 5.5 points a game, but he only had 4 assists against Syracuse. He only had 1 steal against Syracuse.
Overrated.
didn't do anything.
Overrated. Dimitri, do you have any thoughts on Pitt?
I'm just looking at some of the numbers right now.
Their numbers look good because they haven't played anybody.
That very well may be true.
Don't you dare
No.
even start.
I'm just going to say that I'm looking at their schedule. They really haven't played anybody, as you guys have mentioned. Yes, a loss is a loss. But if this team is as bad as you say they are, going into Syracuse and only losing by 5, I'm not big into moral victories, but you have to say that team, after walking out of the Carrier Dome, had to be excited.
They can take a moral victory all they want, but when I look at their schedule, I still see an L next to Syracuse.
And here's the thing: if you take this Pitt team right now, and you put them into the former Big East, they're at the bottom.
Yeah.
No, I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is, if they play good defense, they have 10th overall. Listen, if the schedule, they can't do anything about. I mean, they can do some things about the schedule, but they're out of conference play.
They never play anybody out of conference.
That's Jamie Dixon. He's afraid to challenge his team out of conference because he doesn't want to destroy their confidence going into conference play. He's the complete opposite of Coach K.
And he doesn't want to take those losses going into conference play because he feels like it affects his seeding in the NCAA tournament. If WVU and Pitt still played yearly like they used to, and which in my opinion they still should, Louisville and Kentucky find a way to play twice a year. I don't understand it. They're not in the same conference.
You're right.
But if they play WVU this year, I would take WVU over Pitt.
Really?
Because WVU could get out and run the floor, and Pitt wouldn't be able to handle it.
Really?
Yes. I do not like this Pitt basketball team, period.
I mean, I thought I didn't like this Pitt basketball.
Okay,
Wow.
Listen,
Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, I'm going to hold my. I mean, I think Pitt wins this game, but I'm going to hold my opinion on how I think they'll do in the tournament and conference play coming forward. They got games against Duke coming up, another matchup with Syracuse, UNC, Kearney. So they still have the big games coming up. I'm going to hold my opinion on them. Just a little bit longer.
I see bare minimum for this team 4 more losses within conference play before the NCAA tournament. Bare minimum. I could see them losing up to 7 the rest of the way. When you look at what they have, they still have Duke, they still have Syracuse, North Carolina, Virginia. To me, those are almost 4 locks as losses.
I still don't know how Jamie Dixon has a job.
You go back to this again.
I would have fired
Can I
him
ask you
5
something?
years ago.
Can I ask you something?
Even more than that.
Why does Rick Barnes have a job?
That's a
You
good
being a
question
Texas
too.
fan. Okay.
That's a fantastic question.
Now,
I
something-
wanted him fired years ago. After he single-handedly mismanaged Kevin Durant, Texas should have won that national title that year. With Kevin Durant and all that talent that they had, there was no reason why they
I
shouldn't.
couldn't tell you who won the national title that year. I'm sorry.
I can't even remember what
I
year
don't
that was.
remember
He-
what year that was.
That was 2000.
Can we get help from
2006.
a fact
2006.
guy?
It was 6 or 7.
He was drafted in 07, so it was 2006.
Was it when he was playing for the Longhorns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, looking
I-
this up going into the Clemson game, I'm sorry to jump in, but I saw, yes, they beat Clemson. Clemson beat Duke. Everyone's saying, oh, Pitt destroyed Clemson.
That was an anomaly.
I know. But going into that game, the teams Pitt beat in the ACC were combined 45-29. A respectable record for a basketball team. But the conference record was 8-14. So they haven't played Duke. They haven't played Virginia. They played Syracuse and lost. They haven't played UNC, but UNC's bad this year. I think they could lose to Florida State. If Notre Dame doesn't kick Jerry and Grant off the team, Notre Dame could be a top 25 program.
They can still lose Miami too.
They could still lose to Miami and maybe Virginia Tech.
Virginia
Who has
and
Devin Wilson, who is a local product, went to Montour High School, now starting point guard for the Virginia Tech Hokies.
We're talking about the Kevin Durant. Was that 06, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
My colleague has informed me it was the Florida Gators with Joe Camnello.
Oh! How about that? Thank you. Appreciate that.
That was a terrible game.
Yeah, I don't know how Rick Barnes still has a job, but that's
I'm gonna. You know what I might do? Being the sports nerd I am, I might look that game up on YouTube and watch that again
Oh,
because
Lord.
I love those Florida teams. That was great.
but,
Was that Ronnie Brewer on that team?
Ronnie Brewer, Joakim Noah, Al Horford.
Mhm.
What was the point guard's name?
Who was the guy that can
Was
shoot
it
the lights
Kenny
out?
Boykin or
No, Boykin just he just left.
Who was the kid? Oh, Chandler. No, not Chandler Parsons.
Chandler Parsons was there.
No,
No, he wasn't. That was after.
What was his
Chandler Parsons was
name?
after that.
Just have your colleague look that up. But we're gonna move on. You can.
Torian Green.
Torian Green. That was his
I
name.
picked a Pitt, but they're gonna
So,
lose more.
We're all gonna pick Pitt, but
Okay.
just because they're playing nobody.
But I hope Maryland upsets them.
I
But
would
moving
love it.
on to the NBA, this will be a subject Goose really, really likes, and a player I'm really getting behind. As
Why have you waited so long?
Yeah.
I've been behind. If you followed me on Twitter, see, you claim to be
Who
this.
needs the Twitter?
Everyone in this room, I believe, has it.
No.
Adam, do you have it? Okay, except for Dan because he's stuck in the 19th century.
And he will
I'm
get
not
one
stuck in the
eventually.
19th century. I just don't feel the need to know everything every single person in the world does at every single waking moment of their lives.
Thank you for that. Okay. Anyway, Kevin Durant deserves the NBA MVP this year, and I'll tell you why. He is lighting up the league without
I
one
knew you were going to say that.
Russell Westbrook.
I know it's the obvious statement to make without Russell Westbrook. But again,
Are you trying to make an argument for someone else's MVP of this team or MVP of the NBA?
He's gonna say LeBron James.
no.
No. You know why?
No.
The Miami Heat are just garbage now. I mean, Dwayne Wade is.
Come back to me because let me gather my thoughts.
Oh,
here.
okay.
Let me gather my thoughts.
You got him rattled.
Don't you dare argue that Kevin Durant's not
Going
the
back
MVP.
to Durant, on the season, averaging 31 points per game,
Huh?
5 assists, 7.7 rebounds a game. Those are just gaudy numbers. And correct me if I'm wrong, Goose, but he won, 3 scoring titles in a row?
4 straight.
Four-
I think.
four
I believe
straight.
4 straight. Melo broke that
Well,
one.
we'll have
last
to
year.
have Kyle look that up, our off-mic
Our intern.
colleague. Yes, our intern.
I
for the
like
week.
that. Can we call him the intern from now on? I like that.
He can chime in then if he wants. He's the intern.
But he's gonna stay the intern. He has to stay all semester the intern.
Oh, he has to work his way. Well, I'm not
No,
going to be here.
Dimitri.
No, he's
Is
the
this,
intern.
No.
is this the with without?
He is
Russell
not
Westbrook
MVP.
Discussions. That would...
No. This is the
Scoring
scoring
titles.
title for Durant.
Dimitri.
Will you wait? The scoring title for Durant. Was it 3 straight or 4 straight?
I believe it was 4 if I remember correctly. But
I want to say
It's either 3 or 4.
3, because didn't Kobe win it the 1 year?
No, Kobe sat out a game and he let Durant win it.
Melo broke his
look
streak.
that up.
Melo
Melo get
broke
back
it.
to us.
Dimitri was looking up
Di-
LaMarcus Aldridge on his
I
thing.
understand, and I see his point.
But-
and I'm going to let him explain his point.
Because MVP stands for what?
Most valuable player.
Doesn't really mean that though.
If you take LaMarcus Aldridge, I get Damian Lillard. I understand that. Are they where they are?
If you take Kevin Durant off the Oklahoma City Thunder, are
But-
they even
but-
a franchise?
But
He's got a point.
okay.
Yes, actually, because they still would have moved from Seattle.
Whatever.
But okay, I'm looking at it this way. Russell Westbrook's going to come back eventually. Okay, so if you take Kevin Durant off that team with a healthy Russell Westbrook, are they as good as they are? No.
They're not nearly as good as they are.
But
I know,
who's the bigger drop off? LaMarcus Aldridge less Blazers, or Kevin Durant-less Thunder?
Thunder.
I'm gonna say Kevin Durant-less Thunder.
Yeah, I think the Trailblazers have an incredible bench. When you have Mo Williams, guys like C.J. McCollum, obviously Dame Lillard, Nick Batum is a beast defender, and Durant abused him the other night.
No, trust me. Listen, I think Kevin Durant. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
Oh,
here.
okay.
You gotta stop doing that.
I'm just trying to play devil. Listen,
Getting us all
Kevin
worked up for
Durant
nothing.
can go. I think is of our era is probably one of the players that can challenge Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the all-time scoring leader.
He is a 3-inch taller Reggie Miller, in my opinion, with a post-up game. Kevin Durant's shooting is
Kevin Durant's
so underrated.
only weakness is his lack of muscle. Or
I think that has to do with his body type. He's tall.
Oh yeah,
lanky.
he has a 7'6", 7'3" wingspan.
Yeah.
So I mean, and
He's-
he can knock it down from 30. He can take you off the dribble. He can play in the post. He can do it all on offense. And I'm not disagreeing with anybody. I mean, he's on a tear right now. But I'm just saying, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Okay, it wouldn't be fun if I wasn't doing that.
Now,
Oh!
there's another. I saw.
Oh,
There's another one.
Let me.
One, Paul George, who, if you were to compare, if you take someone off a team, would the drop-off be? I don't remember how you worded that question. I
Paul
would
George
say
list
yes. I would say the Pacers are in a worse position.
than the Thunder.
Yeah, honestly, because the bench, I would take the Thunder's bench over the Pacers bench any day because they have youth. And Paul George is a freak.
Yes.
He's the only guy in the NBA that can shut down LeBron. And shut down as in 20 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. That's shutting down LeBron, in my opinion.
Half you people,
What do
Said-
you mean, you people?
specifically you,
Okay.
and another person I know,
Oh,
said Steven Adams was not going to amount to anything.
Whoa, you better retract that statement. I did not say that.
You questioned the pick,
I
though.
questioned it, but I said he could develop.
Steven
The
Adams
person
is
you're
go-
thinking said Steven Adams is a bust before even playing a game in the NBA. How dare you?
Steven Adams looks really good.
He's an
Like,
agitator. He's a poor man's Joakim Noah.
He's in a good place. I mean, Kendrick Perkins isn't going to be around very much longer. That's
His
who they're
jumper
grooming.
is atrocious. His jumper looks like, I can't even describe it. It's horrible. It's like,
Could you compare it to like Charles Barkley trying to play golf?
yes.
Oh my
yes.
lord! Don't even do that to me. That's a terrible mental image.
Dimitri, you have Paul George's stats in front of you. Why don't you spit some game here?
Okay. He's averaging 23.3 points per game. He's averaging about 3.5 assists, 6 rebounds a game. And again, with him and the Indiana Pacers, I'll say it right now. I see them coming out of the Eastern Conference.
Me too.
I
While
think
we're
they.
on this topic,
I think they beat Miami last year if Danny Granger is healthy.
okay. I think Kevin Durant's the MVP. Dan?
I don't see anywhere where I can disagree.
Right now, yes. We haven't even hit the All-Star break yet.
You don't even have to ask me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's easy pick. You brought up a good topic. Who is in your Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals? I don't want to know who you have going to the championship. I want to know who you have in the finals because I know who my West is.
But do we even have to
As
ask
do
the
I.
East? Do we really have to ask
I
the
want to
East?
know. There are some teams that could
There's a
sneak
few,
up.
but nobody's even showing up right now in the NBA in the Eastern Conference outside of 2 teams, really.
There's a third that's really creeping into the picture who's been on fire since January 1st.
Oh, that's Brooklyn, isn't it?
The Brooklyn Nets
Oh,
are
my.
8-1 since January 1st.
Eastern version of the old folks' home.
They're-
San Antonio
hey,
East.
Hey, what matters? W's, and they're getting them right now. Yes, I like the Nets. I'm making that clear. But who do you have
Along
in
with
the Eastern
75.
In
Conference?
the Eastern Conference, Indiana, Miami.
Indiana, Miami. Dan.
I can't say it's not Indiana, Miami.
Okay.
There's no possible
Indiana,
way.
Miami.
The Eastern Conference is bad.
It is bad.
Really bad.
I really, really, really want to say the Miami Heat aren't going to make the Eastern Conference Finals.
I'll hear you out. Who would you have beating them?
Right now, who would they match up with in the first round?
Brooklyn.
As of right now,
Yes.
if the season were to end right now,
Oh Lord.
think about this. Don't call me crazy. I'm not being a homer. You look at these two teams in the path they are taking right now. Who's healthy? Who's playing their best basketball?
Brooklyn.
Kyle, the intern, can you jump in and answer that question for me?
Out of the Eastern Conference?
Out of those two teams, the
Miami
Heat
and
and Nets, who's playing the best basketball and who's the healthiest?
Well, what people are saying about the Heat is that they're just going through the motions right now. So, like, people are saying they're taking it easy, letting Greg Oden get his 3 to 10 minutes a game. By the playoff time, he'll be playing more. So, I mean, you might be getting a little bit ahead of yourself by saying the Nets are better than the Heat.
No. See, I wasn't.
But
I
they're
was-
definitely looking a lot better. They'll be there in the end.
Yeah, I
Um,
wasn't. I was playing, as Dimitri says,
I know.
devil's advocate.
Right.
Obviously, the Miami Heat are going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Do I want them to be there? No. I love LeBron. I hate the team he's on because I can't stand Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
I don't like the fan base either.
And I don't like the fan base because they're all bandwagoners. There's one person, and he's my next-door neighbor from back home. I've been really good friends with him since I was 6 years old. He's the only long-time Miami Heat fan that I know. The only one.
Yeah. There's none of them. They don't exist.
There aren't. I guarantee you if LeBron leaves, 90% of that fan base will jump ship.
They're going back to Cleveland.
Oh, he's not going back to Cleveland. Okay, but Western Conference Finals. Goose, we'll start with you because that's your area of expertise as well as mine.
Portland and Oklahoma City.
That's mine too.
Yeah, I don't think San Antonio. I have the same one. I don't think San Antonio is as good as they were last year.
But the amazing thing about the Western Conference is I'm gonna take another nice little comparison here. The Western Conference is gonna remind me of the hockey playoffs.
Oh boy.
Because when you look at the teams that are in the West, Clippers, Thunder, Blazers, Spurs. Who else am I forgetting? Rockets.
Did you say the Warriors?
Warriors. That's what I was
was about to say. I haven't seen the Warriors. I don't think they're going to make the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference Finals. Excuse me. But let me tell you something. If Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, even Andre Iguodala started hitting shots, they can make a run.
They did that against the Thunder. They could no one can stop.
But Mr. Durant with 54. Oh,
54 points.
So we all think Durant's the MVP. We have, except for Dan, you didn't really.
Why do you say it's like the hockey playoffs?
Because there's anybody that can come out of it.
Fair.
That's why. When you look at the hockey playoffs from recent years, think about it. Los Angeles Kings won the
as the 8th seed.
It's the 8th seed
Won the
2
cup.
years ago.
Yep.
It's possible for a lot of teams, and a lot of people. I hate this comparison, and I don't understand why people do it. But they feel the need to compare the Miami Heat to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it annoys the crap out of me.
It's basically.
No, it's not.
Dare you. We'll save that for another day. But that's going to do it for basketball talk. We will take a quick break.
I didn't even get mine.
Oh,
I just said there were 7 teams. You skipped out on me.
You went too long.
What the heck?
You went on a tirade.
I can't even get mine.
You
I got muted.
Pick. Who do you have?
I have currently
As of right now at 6:51 p.m. on
Golden
January
State
23rd.
and Portland.
Okay.
You're out of your
Hey,
mind.
it's his opinion. Be respectful, or you can leave.
He's nuts.
Okay. Regardless, that's going to do it for basketball talk here on the Out of Bounds podcast. We will take a quick break and be right back discussing probably the most important topic and most popular topic of the week.
It's not important.
One Richard Sherman. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the Out of Bounds podcast, the Penn IUP student voice. We are talking about Richard Sherman now. You guys okay with that?
No.
Yes.
Gutless.
What do you mean, gutless?
Wait a minute. Wait. Before we start going, Josh, get the question. What's the question before we start rambling thoughts on him?
My question is, what is your take on the Richard Sherman situation that transpired Sunday night?
I've said my piece on it.
I need to hear.
Excuse me, you said your piece on Sports Talk Live. This is the Out of Bounds podcast. Your piece has not been heard.
You've also been saying gutless for the past week. So that's the only word I've heard come out of your mouth.
It's gutless and classless, and it reflects the Seattle fan base, which are classless, gutless, throwing popcorn at an injured LeVar.
What does that have to do with Richard Sherman? Did Richard Sherman throw the popcorn?
No, but his tirade with Aaron Andrews there is a reflection of. To me, it's a reflection of that fan base, and just by throwing popcorn at a player getting carted off the field, that's gutless, that's classless.
So let me get this straight. Say you're at a Patriots game, you being a Patriots fan.
I heard they're awful, by the way.
One fan throws.
They made the playoffs.
I heard they're
Where
awful.
the Steelers been the last 2 years.
Okay, you two.
I said the
Wait a
fans are
minute.
awful.
Listen, say you're at a Patriots
Pittsburgh
game.
fans are no better. Especially Steelers fans.
Just don't waste your breath. It's
Just let
okay.
them have cute towels, though.
Hey, all right. Back to this. The popcorn incident has nothing to do with the Richard Sherman incident. Goose, to say that the Richard Sherman incident is a reflection of the fan base? Come on. I mean, I think you're grasping at straws at that case. But I wrote a column for this will come out on Friday, so for today's paper in the Pen, my take on the whole Richard Sherman thing. I loved it. I think he's the new age athlete. This is what I want to see from athletes. Speak your mind. Stop being a robot in interviews and give all these stupid sports cliches. Speak your mind. You believe you're the best at your position or the best at what you do. I want to hear it.
But we don't need to hear it.
Why?
Go out in the field and prove it. You don't need to tell me. You don't need to tell reporters that you're the best.
He proves it on the field and then speaks it, and I have no problem with that.
His comments were classless. That's being classless.
You know what's classless, Goose? Bill Belichick calling out a receiver that helped win Super Bowls.
I'm not arguing
he took
with that.
out a player.
I'm not arguing with you on that. I questioned that. I said, I thought he was grasping at straws to come up with excuses for the loss.
What? Wes Welker
Never-
didn't. I'm sorry.
No, he never won a
Reached
Super Bowl.
multiple Super Bowls. Thank you, Dimitri.
But it,
You know.
Can I
exactly
go,
what meant.
please?
Go.
Richard Sherman is the bad boy of the NFL that everyone hates, but actually do like. And I love. Actually, I've come a long way from Richard Sherman in the beginning.
Wait, so you like him?
Oh, I'm a fan. And
Thank
let
you.
me tell you why.
I'm listening.
He is from Compton. 3.9 GPA at Stanford.
Going for his masters.
5th round draft pick. And is an All-Pro and is about to start in the Super Bowl. And is the best cornerback in the league. To me, what I wanted, like you said, media gets tired of these players saying the cliches and everyone they're tired of the athletes saying what everyone wants them to say and what everyone wants to hear. But as soon as somebody opens their mouth and is bold and says how they really feel, because I truly wish that Richard Sherman didn't retract his what he said and saying I shouldn't have said it. It was to me what we got on Sunday with Aaron Andrews was honesty. And he truly feels that Michael Crabtree is sorry.
That was the raw thing, and I loved it.
He truly thought that Michael Crabtree was sorry, and he meant what he said. If he said
I
after...
believe he said mediocre, as in mediocre.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, that's what I want to see. Why can't he say what he wants to say? Why? Who says that he can't do that?
America.
He's going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're right.
All of our teams are not in the Super Bowl. And every one of us in here would love to have Richard Sherman on their team.
Tom Brady doesn't say that when he wins games.
Tom Brady also berated a ref after a no call in the back of the end zone. That was a clean play.
I don't want to hear about Tom Brady because if he looks at the referee sideways, they throw a flag.
Dan, do you have something to add?
All right, I'm going to start with this. Retractions are a lot of bull crap.
Whoa.
They mean nothing. You said it the first time, you mean it. We all know that. You're trying to make people happy, whatever. Don't even bother retracting it. Who cares once it's out there? Second, me and you have talked about this a lot. Richard Sherman is the best cornerback in football. When you watch that game against San Francisco, he was they threw the ball at him twice.
And
First one, he got called for a holding.
I don't think that was a holding either way.
He got called for a holding on Crabtree. Second time, the only other time Kaepernick even bothered to throw his way, Sherman knocks it out of the air, and Smith intercepts it.
And I believe watching that game, I called that.
You did call that, yeah.
You
You make your head a little bigger. It's
Had to
fine.
throw that out there.
Love what he does on the field.
I know where you're going with this. Go ahead.
I don't feel the need for people to do this stuff off the field.
Thank you.
I don't. We know there's a bunch of trash talking going on between the two during the game. You said your piece to whatever you wanted to say to Crabtree. You don't need to make it public knowledge to everybody else out there.
Here's my thing. Now, the NFL Total Access clip came out last night. Sherman was mic'd up.
Hell of a game, Michael.
Hell of a game is what he said.
To Crabtree.
Smacked him on the rear end, said hell of a game, put his hand out to get a handshake. What does Crabtree do? Shoves him in the face.
I'm going here. I'm taking it this argument, I'm taking it to this level. He is black. And listen, I mean, I'm not saying anyone here is racist, or we're not supporting him because he's black. We disagree what he did because he's black. What I'm saying
You're going to
is,
go there, aren't you?
Oh, I'm going there.
Because this is where this argument is based.
He's not the pretty boy Tom Brady, Michigan man. Richard Sherman came from Compton.
I don't think he's ever going to have an underwear ad. I'm just saying.
He came from Compton.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
He went to Compton and then he went to Stanford. Most, I think, people would turn his nose. What? He's from Compton. He went to Stanford. That's such a good school. How did he get in there?
Because he plays football.
Yeah, football.
No.
If you don't think that there is something about him being black in this whole conversation, I think you're naive.
It's not for me.
I'm not
really
saying
isn't.
for you, for the listeners.
I know, but going back to what you said, you can be the best at any position. It does not give you the right to call out a player like that. It doesn't give you. Maybe
Why
it's
not?
because I watch a sport that is all about respect
You're a hockey
and
guy.
unwritten rules, and you don't blatantly call out players like that.
To be devil's advocate, you mentioned respect in hockey.
You can bring up Tortorella.
No, I wasn't
Okay,
going to go
good.
there.
Just saying.
We're getting off topic real quick. Just have a question, yes or no. Do you really think that the majority of those players respect each other with the way they hit each other into the boards, dirty hits, slashes?
It's expected
Fighting?
of them.
Why is
it's
it
expected that you have to.
That's not.
I'm gonna say
that's not the new age hockey, man. I'm sorry. That's old school. That's got to go, especially with concussions and all the injuries, man.
That not to quit Ben, but that sounds exactly like how the Flyers play, how like old school hockey. It's
Broad Street bullies.
yeah, we
I'm
didn't
sure-
get respect as a team because we were thugs, and we still are thought of as thugs. And it's one of the things. Like, I'm from Philadelphia, and I should have probably kept that shut. Now that
That's
I produced
fine.
this podcast, seeing as how everybody's from Pittsburgh here, but
Well, not necessarily.
yeah, the Flyers have never lived that down.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are going to take this and never live it down because of it. I feel like it is ingrained into Seattle.
They're the Broad Street bullies of
Of
the
NFL, yeah.
But here's the thing.
But
The reason that they're taken as that is because these guys aren't guys that were highly drafted. They're a bunch of misfits who are doing what people don't think they should do in the
You're
NFL.
at the NFL. Show
Doesn't
some
matter.
professionalism.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, you can show
But
professionalism
to
all
answer
you
your,
want.
can I answer
ahead.
your question?
Yeah.
There is no. Some players don't respect some players in the NHL, but there's a lot more of it. There's a lot more respect.
There's a lot to do in the NFL too.
But
Richard Sherman is a small microcosm of what players are like, or what players are not like in the NFL. The majority of the NFL players are respectful. They don't run their mouth. You have some that are, I'll call him this, a diva. Richard Sherman is a diva. But I think what he did Sunday night after the game was a calculated move. Okay? He knew that if they were to win and he was to get interviewed, he was going to go off. Maybe not in the sense that he did, because I think what sparked what he did was when he made the play, and then Crabtree basically smacked him in the face. But I think if he were to be interviewed, he would have still said, I'm the best corner in football. I proved that out on the field, and he would have spoke his mind. But what gets me is these people calling him a thug and throwing out the N-word and saying they set the black race back 500 years like Andre Iguodala tweeted right after it happened. It's pretty sad, especially when we get into, what was ironic was the next day was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we have this almost like a civil rights problem. It was freedom of speech. He's expressing himself. In this country, you're encouraged to express your individuality. But the minute someone does that, steps out of line, steps away from the norm, it's a huge problem. Stop the press.
And that's my problem.
Can't happen.
And that's my problem. He's definitely something of a new age in the NFL. Like you said, most players are going to give you the cliche answers.
I want the real person.
Yes,
and I want the Peyton Manning answers. That was disrespectful what Richard Sherman did. That's totally disrespectful
that's
and
your
classless.
Opinion. It's your opinion.
See,
Was
to me-
Crabtree himself disrespectful when he did that? I mean, I saw it. He could have shook the man's hand.
You're right.
Yeah.
Now, if it would have come out on tape that Sherman said, I told you wouldn't do anything against me. You're mediocre.
Right, and then
Crabtree smacked him in the face. All bets are off.
But and then, reports came after the game, or maybe it was Monday or Tuesday, that Crabtree and Richard Sherman had gotten into an event this past summer.
And Crabtree's called Sherman out to his face.
Yeah, and they were going to fight. I don't know, but I don't know the exact details, but they were going to fight. So there's history there, and it's also Seahawks and Niners meeting for the third time for the right to go to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of
they're rivals.
Yeah.
They are the new age Steelers Ravens.
Yes, absolutely. And do you think back in the day, Hines Ward and Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and all those boys?
They talk trash.
Oh my God! And
can I ask you this? You're a Steeler fan. I think everyone else is in here. Okay, because we have Patriots, Kyle, Packers. Oh, Dan, you are just not a
Steeler fan.
Okay. Can you tell me who was the best trash talker in football around 2005?
Joey Porter,
And who did he play for?
Steelers.
And we all supported everything he did, including the pregame fight with William Bell of the Cleveland Browns. Steeler fans were completely okay with it. Why is what Richard Sherman did any different? He didn't fight anybody. He didn't use any derogatory language or swearing in his interview. He spoke his mind. Why is he any different from Joey Porter? In a sense. Steeler fans love Joey Porter. Oh, he played with an edge. He talked trash. He backed it up. Richard Sherman does the same thing. What's the difference?
I'm with you. I totally love what he did. I don't think he should. I think he shouldn't retract anything he said or take back anything he did, because honestly, that was the real Richard Sherman. And I've come a long way with my opinion on him. I thought when he started that whole Twitter thing with Darrell Revis.
I remember in the summer, you and I were texting back and forth about this.
I was kind of on edge. He seemed kind of sensitive, and he was trying to get his name out. And I was more of the let your play speak for itself. But as I've started watching, obviously I follow the Seahawks and whatever, but I follow football, whatever. But anyways, the point is, I follow Richard Sherman. I started to get to know him a little bit more, and getting to know his background and where he comes from. He is a guy with a chip on his shoulder that is humbled, and I say that because I really feel like he is. And I think that when he came out and said what he said, that was real raw emotion. And I think that I think we're as a media, I think we're a little we turn our nose up when people do that. When athletes come out and just say, "Oh, I am the best. I am the best at what I do." That guy is sorry. He is not as on my level.
That's what I want.
I don't want to hear we both played a great game and, good luck to them next year. No, I don't want to hear that.
He also, he had a point to prove in this game, too, considering the fact he's playing as college coach.
Who's passed over him 5 times in the draft?
That was my point. Passed over him in the draft for a right to go to the Super Bowl. Think he's not a little salty at Jim Harbaugh?
And keep in mind, Richard Sherman's making $550,000 this year. It's the best cornerback in football. Darrell Revis got $16.9 million without playing a snap coming off an ACL injury.
Non-guaranteed, but
talk about a chip, though. But that will do it for the first episode of the Out of Bounds podcast. Just a real quick parting shot. I'm happy that
Sean Taylor.
Yes, I'm happy that Eric Rivera Jr. was convicted of 57 years or found guilty of killing Sean Taylor and has been given 57 years in state prison. So that's big news, and I'm happy that
Bieber got arrested.
On a lighter note.
On a lighter note, Bieber got arrested.
Not sports, but any parting shots?
One time I praised Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby did the honorable thing, asking Jonathan Taves if it was okay with him to carry the C for Team Canada. That's
fair.
A very class move.
All IUP students that are out there, that anybody that's going to listen to this thing, go to the men's basketball and women's basketball games tomorrow. It's Slippery Rock. They're bringing bringing 4 busloads of students.
Come to the game, okay? Saturday, 5:30 and 7:30. You're hearing this on Friday, so please come out. That'll do it. For Mike Gosnell, Dimitri George, Dan Wallace, I am Josh Carney.
All right, say it.